Hi, thank you for being here and welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of the Let's Talk Education podcast. Beyond getting informed, the goal of this podcast is to influence action to improve educational outcomes in diverse ways. So to accomplish this goal, each episode will have some suggested action points to get us taking action. In this first episode, we are talking about why we go to school. We start with an education quote, get into the topic, listen to the opinions of some individuals, and end with some suggested action points. My name is Stephen Tettegah, your host, and this is Let's Talk Education. And now, the education quote for this episode. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. This is a quote by Albert Einstein. Take a moment to reflect on what this quote means to you. Do you agree? Does something about it resonate with you? Is there something you don't agree with? I like the fact that it separates education from schooling to emphasize that education is what you take with you when you leave the walls or the institutions of school. We'll be right back and we go right into the topic for this episode. This is Let's Talk Education. So the question is, why do we go to school? Sounds quite simple, yet a bit complex. And we may want to start exploring this question from the intention of those who put us to school, those who establish schools. So these are governments and policymakers. But before that, we can look at some historical perspective, zooming into Ghana. So in the case of Ghana, what we had before contact with European influences is what we call traditional African education, which dominated the scene for generations. And the institution of schools, where we have buildings where people go to study, were non-existent. And so parents and community elders in houses and community centers took up the responsibility of training children in religion, in culture and customs, traditions, and the other elements through oral tradition, through music, through dance, through the names of people and other oral traditional forms. So the main goal of this was to bring up children who would fit in the culture of society and live in an acceptable manner according to societal standards. But beyond this practice, which we will be called homeschooling in modern times, people were receiving training into occupations. And so there was a huge economic focus to education. The simple purpose you should go to school or you should receive training was so that you get into some form of employment. And so a family of fishers or farmers will most likely provide training to their children to acquire the skills to continue the family business. And of course, if a child wants to do something other than what their parents were doing, the parents would let them get training from someone reputable doing something in the community, like a baker, a carpenter, a goldsmith, a weaver, a potter, a trader, what have you. So the person would be serving or be working directly with someone who they want to learn from so that they can acquire skills directly that they can rely on for their own employment. So we see that traditional African education had two main purposes. And the first was to socialize individuals to be culturally informed, knowing their history, their language forms, their music, their dance, their culture, their traditional values, so that they fit well in society. Now, the second purpose, which is more economical, is about training people to become useful to society in a particular field of occupation, be it farming, fishing, pottery, goldsmith, or something of a sort. So that is with traditional African education, which continues till today. Now, following this period, we saw the beginning of schooling in a different form that was championed by European powers. This was grounded in the advancement of religious values and beliefs, especially with Christianity. And the goal of this form of education was to not only indoctrinate or Christianize the population, but also to produce low-level manpower in the form of clerks, messengers, interpreters to advance trade, and also to give literacy education to misbred children before they are transitioned to an European country or they work in the commercial trade or colonial administration. Now, after colonialization, the first Ghanaian-led Education Act of 1961 under Kwame Nkrumah aimed to, among others, prepare citizens to provide skilled labor for the government's accelerated development plan. Now, schooling was a means of national integration, and one of the things that government sought to do was to find ways to bring citizens together. And so teachers would be posted to regions that they were not born in so they can integrate. And secondary school children would also be posted in other regions. They have to move from one region to the other. And so the government was looking for ways to integrate the country and break tribal bounds that may lead into conflict as a way of building national integration. We also saw education being used as an equalizer or to bridge a gap by the establishment of some schools in the northern parts of Ghana, which had been discriminated for a particular period of time. And we also saw the extension of free education to the northern part of the country to bridge that gap, which in some form continues to exist till today. We go right into the reasons for going to school, which can be looked at from the international, national, family, and individual level. Now, the international level, which is more contemporary or more recent, we've seen the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals that shapes international development and policies. Now, currently we have concepts like global citizenship, climate change, education, tolerance, pluralism, and some of these international agendas trickles down into the kind of policies and curriculum that is taught in schools. And so we see a match or some intention towards these values. At the national level, education may be used by the government to propagate or to push some particular agenda. Sometimes it can be about patriotism. It can be about raising people who are tolerant, people who are pluralist in their view, people who have the development agenda of the country at their forefront, or they are concerned about the development of their country. So sometimes so it's about what path the government is taking. And so the government is shifting towards industrialization, some kind of technological wave. It's driven by its policies and trickles down in school in terms of what subjects or what curriculums are taught in school to accomplish what objectives. Now, at a family level, there may be different reasons for different families taking their children to school. Some of them is as simple as bringing some prestige or reputation to the family to feel that, we are an educated family, or we are a family of people who have received education. Especially in colonial times, people who receive education were usually royals. And so there was some prestige or reputation that comes with being able to speak English, going to school, having some educational qualifications. So some, it's just about prestige. And for some families, it's about some form of economic investment, so that rather than probably stay in the house or find another job, people feel like we are taking our child to school so that they can get some white collar job, or they can grow their knowledge in a particular field in order that it brings some financial returns to the family. Sometimes too, it's just about the family having a business or an organization. some form of company, and so the family is trying to raise some of its members to take over to run that business, which belongs to the family. At the individual level, of course, this is usually determined by the individual, but sometimes it's just about exploring one's interest in a particular field of study. And sometimes it's also about getting training into a profession where people would want to pursue a career in, say, journalism. And so they are looking for ways to go to school to learn the skills that is associated with journalism. There are times that you would also go to school because you have some interest in the field or just want to explore an interest. And so a lot of subjects in the humanities and social sciences do not necessarily aim to raise professionals. So a typical example is when people meet someone who is a political science graduate. There's an assumption that, wow, if you read political science in school, you must be a politician. But the course of political science, for example, is training people and giving them some theoretical knowledge to understand governance systems, political theories, and things like that, but not necessarily preparing them to become politicians, which would be a more professional form of training. Beyond this that has been mentioned, there are people who just want to go to school for the reputation and the self-esteem that it comes with. People would see education as a means of self-actualization, which applies more to higher education. There are people who want to earn a master's degree or get a PhD so that they can feel that, yes, I've gotten there, or yes, I'm somebody, just to add some kind of reputation or to feel good about it. So we realize that the reasons why people go to school may differ and may be in different levels, but generally people go to school to prepare themselves into a profession or to get a job after they complete school. People go to school as a means of character development or some form of cultural acquisition. Sometimes it's just about the interest and the joy of acquiring knowledge, and sometimes it's about some form of civic education or citizenship education, which the government passes through learners through the curriculum. Now, there are interesting questions that would go into regarding going to school, and we'll get into that after this break.
Think that we go to school to get an education and also learn some social life skills. When I say social life skills, I mean to say that in school we are being taught how to relate well with our colleagues and also communicate well with them, etc., etc. And so these skills go a long way in helping us in our future lives and careers.
My name is Ali Ilyasu, a STEM educator. I believe that we go to school to discover our individual selves, learn more about the society in which we and others live in, and better understand our natural environment. Ultimately, I think this knowledge is meant to equip us to create value for ourselves, society, and the natural environment.
My name is Kat and I'm a teacher. I believe we go to school to enable us to become informed and caring critical thinkers, allowing us to move into society and become responsible, active and purposeful citizens, both locally and in the global context.
My name is Sandra Edu and I'm a teacher. We go to school because we'd like to gain more knowledge and get new friends and also get access to opportunities that comes with education.
My name is Harmony. So on the issue on why we go to school, the reason why we go to school is to acquire knowledge to improve upon our self-development as individuals. Also, the school helps us develop interest in various curricular and extracurricular activities, which gives us informed decisions when it comes to choosing a lifetime career. Furthermore, as human beings, the school helps us build on our social and analytical skills, which will enable us make constructive criticisms to societal happenings, hence preparing us for a greater future. In summary, I will leave you with this quote from Malcolm X, which states that education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today.
Thank you for staying and doing the listening all along. And we wouldn't want to end the episode without looking at some action points for us. I think this is an important part of this podcast to inspire action. After the discussion, we come back to think about what we can do to help things or to make things better and improve educational outcomes. So these are 4 action points following this episode. The first thing is for individuals to critically assess their aims for going to school. We've established that people go to school for different reasons, and I think that before we step in the walls of school, before we start the journey of schooling, it's important for us to begin to reflect on why we are going to school. Why do I want to go to senior high school? Why do I want to read the course I want to read? Why do I want tertiary institution? Why do I want to do my master's? And starting to reflect on why would give us some focus and help us to be intentional about our educational path. Another thing, especially for teachers, is to have discussions that allow people to reflect on why they are in school and just continuously bringing students back to the why of their dressing up every morning and showing up to school would help them to be more goal-oriented so that they are acting towards the goals or their intentions of being in school, which would maybe change from time to time, but it's also important to have these discussions as much as possible. If you're a parent or you're listening, it's important for you to let your child know about the different reasons why people would want to go to school and expose them to some of these discussions so that they are aware that, okay, these are some of the pathways, this is what I may be getting, and this is what I want to do. So parents need to discuss what their wishes for their children is as they enter school. So they try to find a common ground. And of course, a lot of times what the child wants to pursue should be the ultimate with your advice or guidance, but without imposing something on them. And the last thing, which is more broad, is for governments to provide clear pathways for students to clarify and meet their goals or intentions of going to school. And so if someone is going to school for the purpose of profession, there should be some clear indication that, well, if this is what you want from school, then this is the path that you choose, this is where you go, this is where you go. And I think I'm excited that the new curriculum allows people at some point to decide if they want to pursue some extra or go ahead to do tertiary education, or they want to go into a more technical, vocational, or a job related field where they get a diploma that prepares them for a particular field of work. So these are 4 action points for individuals, teachers, parents, and governments or policymakers for this episode. I would say thanks so much for joining us for the very first episode on why we go to school. We'll catch you next time on the next episode of Let's Talk Education. I'm signing out now. This is Stephen Tettegah, your host, and this is Let's Talk Education.